Good evening. Welcome to your City Commission meeting. Please turn off all cell phones during the meeting tonight. We will begin with a call to order with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a silent meditation. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It looks like we start tonight with a couple of proclamations. First proclamation is for Kathy Williams. Does someone want to come up here with me, please? Yeah, please. Okay. Kathy Williams was born circa 1842 in Independence, Missouri. And whereas, while living in Jefferson City, Missouri, was impressed into service with the Union forces in 1861 by Colonel W.P. Benton. And whereas, after the end of the Civil War in 1865, the Army's Reorganization Act of July 29, 1866 was signed that authorized the formation of 6 all-black regiments with white officers. These regiments were the 9th and 10th Cavalry and the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st Infantry. And whereas, on the 15th day of November, 1866, Kathy Williams reversed her name and changed the spelling of her last name, enlisted in the Army as William Cathay at Jefferson Barracks, St. Louis, Missouri, into the 38th Infantry Company A. And whereas Kathy Williams has earned a unique place in history as the only documented female Buffalo soldier and as the only documented African-American woman who served in the regular Army infantry prior to 1948, when women were officially allowed to join the Army. And whereas after an Army surgeon discovered she was a woman, William Cathay was discharged from the Army on the 14th day of October 1868 at Fort Bayard in the New Mexico Territory. And whereas Kathy Williams died circa 1892 in the Colorado Territory, and whereas on the 22nd day of July 2016 in Leavenworth, Kansas, the Buffalo Soldier Educational and Historical Committee donated this monument of Kathy Williams to the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum. And whereas this monument will forever serve as a symbol of motivation for all women who have served and serving into the United States military. And now, therefore, during the 150th anniversary of the signing of the Army Reorganization Act of 1866, I, Larry Dedeke, Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, do hereby proclaim Friday, July 22, 2016 as Kathy Williams Day. Would you like to say a few words?
We'd like to thank you all for the proclamation in honor of Kathy Williams. And we also invite you all to come out on the 22nd of July at 12:30 to our building at the Richard Allen Cultural Center and Museum and be a great part of a very historical day for us and for her. So we look forward to seeing you. And my name is Edna Wagner. I am the Executive Director. This is Commander Retired Phil Pott. He is here also. He is also our team leader in this project. And Dominic Johnson, who is also on the team as a researcher. So we thank you all for allowing us to be here tonight and receive this. And if Commander Philpott has a few more words, he can add to it.
I just want to thank Mrs. Williamson for working with us to get it right. And Major Johnson for doing all the research. We appreciate your support for the last 25 years or so from the City of Leavenworth for all our projects honoring the Buffalo soldiers. It's a great pleasure for it to be here and the site for Kathy Williams no better place for that. I hope it brings a lot of positive publicity to the city of Leavenworth as Spiritual and Culture Center has. Thank you all very much for the last 25 years.
I'm not Mayor Larry Hedges. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Bowder, and I'm filling in for him tonight. We have another proclamation here on recreation programs in the city of Leavenworth. Whereas recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including the city of Leavenworth. And whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of disease, providing therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, the expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas parks and recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month, and whereas the city of Leavenworth recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore I, Mayor Larry Dedeke, Mayor of the City of Leavenworth, do hereby proclaim the month of July 2016 as Leavenworth Parks and Recreation Month. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure, thanks. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Bowder. Appreciate it, and thank you for this proclamation. And I'd just like to invite everybody out to all of our wonderful parks here in Leavenworth, not only in the month of July, but in all the months. Thank you very much.
Presentation of the 2017 budget.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. As is tradition with the City of Leavenworth, the Commission meeting before we start budget meetings, the City Manager gives an overview of the coming budget. So for the 2017 budget, tonight I'll provide an overview, and then as a reminder to the public, the Commission and everybody here, we start departmental budget meetings open to the public tomorrow at 1 o'clock in City Hall. They'll be 1 to 5 on Wednesday and 1 to 5 on Thursday, where we'll go over budget, department, and division. So tonight the overview starts as follows. I'm going to give just a brief background of how we got to where we are, a little bit of a narrative. The general fund balance at the end of 2009 was about $3.24 million. We saw the arrival of the Great Recession impacting the next budget, and over the next 3 years that was cut in half, our general fund reserve, to about $1.607 million at the end of 2012. You can see the deficit spending in 2010, 2011, and 2012. That was coupled with a great decrease in expenses as well. The general fund was stabilized in 2013, and we had a small surplus and an ending balance of about $1.907 million. The general fund spiked a little bit in 2014, due in large part to the 1-cent sales tax to offset property tax that we began collecting in July of that year, which was not able to be used for that year's property tax reduction. We started that in 2015. So the end result of that was by the end of 2014, we were back to our 2009 reserve, our general fund balance of $3.43 million. Essentially, it took us 5 years to get back there, and a little help from that 1-cent sales tax. So now I bring you what we've done the last 2 years and what the 2017 budget looks like. Unfortunately, those three budgets are similar in that it's pretty much a flat property tax revenue. A little bit decrease, a little bit increase over the last couple years, but essentially flat. Positive sales tax growth we've seen, which has been encouraging. That's been used to pretty much offset the lack of growth in property tax increase. We've controlled expenses. We haven't added any positions back. We've controlled expenses to the line item in most departments because there's no increase in revenue. We have not expanded city services or personnel. They've been essentially flat, no activity budgets, 2015, 2016, and what I'm presenting 2017. That's the narrative. So this is the general fund balance in chart form. The red line represents our policy of operating reserves, which is 1 month. I did mention at our goal setting session that I think we're going to revise that when we talk about our policies and increase that, our reserve. So I am happy to show that in 2017 we are showing no decrease in the general fund balance. Assessed valuation. If you look at the early years of the 2000s, there was a lot of growth in assessed valuation, which allowed the city to expand some offices and some services. If you look over the past 7, it hasn't looked so good. So you use each year, 2016 would be the model for the 2017 budget. As you can see there, we're down about 1%. I thought this was an important slide to show you that the city is growing a little bit in total assessed value. Unfortunately, tax abatements have increased as well. With everything that's happened in the downtown at the 4th and Metro area, the hotel, the Hampton Inn, the Sew Factory Lofts, the Fairfield Inn, all that positive growth in the community is still very good for jobs. It helps sales tax. It is not helping property tax because that is property tax abated. But that seems to be the cost of doing business and development right now. So that is what it is. And we do expect to see this trend continue with the new downtown hotel, which also will have its property taxes abated through the development agreement and the ZEC expansion. So 2017, as I mentioned, the property tax, the ad valorem general fund portion went down about $56,000. Our franchise fees, gas prices, natural gas prices aren't helping much. That went down $25,000. And we also continue to see a decrease in court fines and fees, went down about $25,000. Sales tax and compensating use tax. Compensating use tax is tax on internet sales, so it's essentially sales tax, but we still separate that out because the state separates that out. We see a positive increase there. The total revenue increase of $230,000, that math doesn't quite work if you look at the decreases in revenue and the increases in revenue. A lot of that has to do with interfund transfers to our bond and interest fund and some other factors that we'll get into a little bit more over the next 2 days. I want to show a graph of our sales tax growth. You'll see the half jump in 2014 of that half-year sales tax, and then the 2015, 16, and 17 expectations. I do also want to give you a percentage where we saw about a 2% growth from 2015 to 2016, and we're expecting about a 5% growth next year based on how numbers are trending. So sales tax is still trending upward. Going through expenses for the 2017 budget, as I mentioned, it's a pretty flat budget, so stuff that in prior years wouldn't even be worth mentioning because this budget is so flat and so year to year, little items made a pretty big difference. Health insurance, we're expecting an increase of a budgeting of a little over $80,000. An election expense that we're going to have in 2017, the city's portion is $30,000. Software maintenance, every department has more and new software every year. Software maintenance contracts continue to go up. Parks mowing, that's an increase just to reflect what it costs now to do that kind of work. And asphalt costs, we're doing more in-house, and we run out of asphalt. They're able to do short segments of street, but primarily a lot of patching and repair of small work. So we're trying to give them the tools they need to continue to make those small repairs. I want to talk a little bit about my personnel, the city manager's budget personnel proposals. The budget does not propose any additions or eliminations to what we have for 2016. There's very limited resources in our flat budget to address any kind of compensation or benefits. I mentioned the healthcare increase. For the first time in quite a while, we are actually making a plan design change where the proposed change would be single coverage insurance plans would now include an employee contribution. That's probably overdue. We tried to hold on to that as a good benefit for single payer, but it's just not realistic anymore. So we're starting the trend of anybody who has single coverage will now pay a little bit of their coverage. The first range, I am suggesting the first range adjustment since 2014. It will affect about 25 employees. When I say we're still 2 years behind, we're only doing a 1-year range adjustment. So in theory, we'd be adjusting to 2015 levels. It's just about all we can afford. A lot of this is for entry level police officers, so you don't fall too far behind. We need to at least do a 1-year adjustment, I believe, in 2017. I'd like to do more. Now, what comes with that is something I'm sure everybody's familiar with, the term compaction, where if you bring the bottom up a little bit, then you start running into the salary of the people who've been there 2 or 3 or 4 years, and then you run into problems. So I am proposing a 2% cost of living increase, but not applied till mid-year. I wish that there was flexibility in the budget to do more, to do it at the start of the year. They're simply not without making cuts or increasing revenues in some way. So that would be the proposal. I think everybody has seen this chart before. I'd like to point out that we are not proposing a mill levy increase. The city has not raised their mill levy since, looks like, from the 2002 to the 2003 budget, and that was just slightly. And we continue to stay firm where we've been since we dropped the property tax in 2015. So just an overview, no proposed millage increase, no personnel additions or cutbacks, controlled expenses, modest revenue growth, no changes to service, and maintaining the fund balance. We're going to operate much in 2017 like we did in 2016. And that's the budget that we'll be working with the next 2 days. It's obviously a draft for the and make any suggestions or alterations they see fit.
Thank you. Thank you. Any questions or anything before tomorrow? No. All right. Okay, moving on to old business. Consideration of previous meeting minutes.
Mayor Pro Tem, I move that we approve the June 28th, 2016 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? I'll start with.
Sorry.
You can do it either way. You can do it any way you want to do it.
Jump to it. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda, second consideration ordinance. Number 8,000, amending Chapter 50 Fire Prevention and Protection.
There have been no changes to the ordinance since it was first introduced on June 28th. If you have any other questions, otherwise there are no changes.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, we'll start with the roll call vote. Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
That has passed. Do we need to say anything else? We move on. New business. Citizen participation. Is there any citizens who would like to speak today? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. General items. Review unsafe structures.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, our city planner is going to take over here in a second. This is sort of the annual process that we do about collecting unsafe structures throughout the year that we start on the path to demolition should we not reach any kind of remediation agreement. As a reminder, we've recently adopted some new standard operating procedures, so Julie's actions here tonight and going forward are based on those, which I'm happy that we got those in place before this process. And Julie Hurley will now go through what we have as far as unsafe structures.
All right, thanks, Paul. Madam Mayor and Commissioners, as Paul said, this is our 2016 list of dangerous structures, and as you'll recall, we spent a few meetings going over the new criteria that we would be looking at, and those criteria are based on Kansas statute. We feel pretty good about getting our policies in line with what the state has approved for determination of unsafe and blighted structures. In the Kansas statute, there are a list of criteria that we used in determining or in evaluating all of these structures. You can see them listed out all in your policy report. And we did go through that checklist of each of those for all of these properties that we're about to look at. So I will just go through each of these. We can go through pretty quick. And tonight what we're doing is we're just putting this on first consideration ordinance. When it comes back for second consideration, that will be setting the public hearing. So we'll be doing that next month. And then the notification and publication process that we have to go through takes about 45 days. So it'll be another month and a half or 2 months after that before we have the public hearing, when the property owners will come in and present their cases to you if they so choose.
Let me understand it again. So this is just the first reading, and then we're going to bring them back for first consideration.
This is the
First consideration, but then you said next month. Why can we not do it 2 weeks from tonight?
After we set the first consideration ordinance, then our department has to go through the process of doing all the title work and background work on all of these properties.
Okay, so you need that amount of time.
Yes, we
So
need
first week, first regular meeting in August.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a little bit more time for us to get everything that we need to get in place before we do the second consideration.
Okay.
And Julie, can I just
Yeah.
say, it has to come back and you have to set a resolution to set the public hearing. And then by statute, we have to allow 30 days between that time and the hearing, at least 30 days to notify also. So before we can get the ordinance, we have to do that resolution.
I'm
Yeah.
wondering, can we set the public hearing as soon as possible, and then it'll be another 30 days before we have the public hearing? Does that give all that time together? Does that give you enough to do all that work? Or can you not do that without doing all that work? I'm just trying to speed up this.
Sure.
You know, it's
Yeah.
always a laborious process.
From this meeting till we set the public hearing is giving her some of that time to get all that together. But by statute, from the date we set the public hearing till we actually hear it, that resolution has to be at least 30 days.
And so we've got
Because we
to
have
have
to
all the
give
title
notice.
work done
Yes.
before we have that resolution to set the public hearing, because pretty much as soon as that's set, then our clock starts ticking and we have to get those notifications out, and we have to publish it, I think, 2 times
We have to
in
publish
the
it
paper.
twice.
And
Okay, so our public hearing realistically will be 60 days from tonight if everything
Yeah,
moves smoothly. Okay.
roughly. So we're just starting the ball rolling tonight, and this will be your first review of them. Just to let you know, all of the property owners of these properties have been contacted, and they've all been given the opportunity to sign a remediation agreement, which would be a list of all the items that they would need to do to bring these properties up to code with the city. We have a few that have signed those remediation agreements. The rest have either declined or just not responded to our contact. So I'll point those out as we go through these. The first one is 50 Logan Avenue. It didn't show up quite as well on the screen as I'd hoped, but it's the property outlined in blue there. The criteria that were checked off on this one are dilapidation, disrepair, structural defects, and a damaged roof. The last water service at this property was in July of 2012. We do check the last date of water service on all of these just to verify that they are vacant. Since we do only deal with vacant properties, we don't want to displace or relocate any people living in their homes.
Is this in order here? So is this second page for Logan, or is that the next structure?
Yep, that's for Logan, and we'll
Okay,
kind of
thank
look
you.
through the pictures, and they'll
Okay,
be largely
thank you.
the same, so.
All right, just want to make sure.
Yep. So you'll have the checklist first in your packet, and then the page after that will
Thank
be
you.
the pictures of that property.
Okay.
This is 50 Logan. Going through, we've got some significant roof damage on this one. The next one is 426 Limit Street. This one was actually on the demolition list back in 2014. The property owner did not make the repairs that he agreed to at that time. This continued to deteriorate, so we brought it back for this round. The criteria that were checked off on this one were defects increasing the hazard of fire or accidents, lack of adequate ventilation, lights or sanitary facilities, walls, siding, or exterior of quality and appearance not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood. And their last water service was in November of 2010.
Have you heard
Julie?
from this property owner?
This one is actually one that signed a remediation agreement agreeing to...
6 years ago, or
He signed
40.
one this past month.
Yeah, because
Yeah, but he
that was
had
my
to have
question.
substantial improvements. He signed one in June, had to have substantial improvements
He's got to show some substantial
by July
improvements.
6th, by last week, correct?
Yes.
Did he?
What they had to do by July 6th was bring us proof of their funds to do the work, and then they actually have 60 more days to complete that work. So by the time you all hear this back at the public hearing, that time will have expired, and they will have had adequate opportunity to take care of any of these issues that
Did
we
he do what he was supposed to do by July 6th?
He did.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And as far as I know, there were really no improvements to this one after it came off the demolition list a couple of years ago.
And no change in ownership? It's still the same owner?
Correct, it's the same owner.
Okay. Wow, I need to see a miracle there. Yeah, truly.
The next one is 655 South Street.
Oh, I think it's falling in.
And this one, there are actually 2 homes on this property. You can see on the map, the one to the right is the one in question. The property, the house to the left, the owner actually lives in. This one, it's got, the roof is caving in, as you can kind of see on the picture. It's got dilapidation, disrepair, structural defects, walls and siding not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood. And the last water service at this address was in August of 2004. So it's been quite some time since there was an occupant in this one.
You say it has two houses at the same address?
Yep, there's 2 houses at the same address. Let's look back here. There we
Same
go.
owner or both?
Yep, same owner. Just one of those anomalies like we've got throughout town. We wouldn't allow that now, but we do have a few of these where there are 2 homes on one property and it is the same owner. We have had contact with this owner. It's a family. It's several sisters that own it. One sister lives in the home, that's 659 there to the left. And the other sisters that are part owner of this property are out of town. And I believe that there's been some difficulties in getting repairs made and things dealt with just among the family members. And so that's what kind of got us to the point of being on this list.
Did they sign a remediation agreement this month?
They did not.
Okay.
Next one is 776 Thornton. And this one also includes the garage to the back of it. This one's over there close to our service center off of Thornton. It's in dilapidation and disrepair. The last water service was in March of 2012. Some gutters kind of falling off of it. There's a rear view of the home. Our next one is at 113 Chestnut. This one's, the criteria that were checked were light or sanitary facilities, disrepair, uncleanliness, dead and dying trees, the walls and siding, the exterior not commensurate with the neighborhood, and vermin infestation. The last water service here was in November of 2007. This one's got quite a bit of growth around it, so it's a little bit hard to see without getting too far up onto the property.
Yeah, if you wanted to get in there, you really couldn't.
Yeah, you'd need to have
You need a
machete with it.
chainsaw.
Our next one is 616 Spruce. The criteria that we checked on this were defects increasing the hazards of fire, accident, or other calamities, light or sanitary facilities, dilapidation, disrepair, structural defects, uncleanliness, dead and dying trees, the exterior not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood, and vermin infestation. This one's had no water service since September of 2011. You can see some pretty significant roof defects there. This includes a garage to the rear of the property. It's in about the same shape as the house. There's kind of in the back of the garage and the foreground of the house beyond it.
Satellite.
The satellite on the roof.
Yeah, that's been there for a while.
Yeah, it's about to land inside the house, thanks.
Next one is 717 Olive. The criteria that we checked on this are light or sanitary facilities, dilapidation, disrepair, cleanliness, dead and dying trees, and vermin infestation. This one's had no water service since July of 2010.
Any remediation agreement on this one?
Yes. Oh, no, this one does not have a signed remediation agreement. This one also includes a garage to the rear of it. See, there's no roof on the garage. It's looking at the rear of the house. Next one is 717 Ottawa. There's no remediation agreement on this. The criteria we checked were defects increasing the hazards of fire, accident, or other calamities, light or sanitary facilities, uncleanliness, dead and dying trees, and unsightly stored or parked material, equipment, supplies, machinery, or automobiles. This one's had no water service since June of 2011. Most of these, as you can tell, do have quite a bit of roof damage. The next one is 800 Osage Street. This one was previously on the demolition list in 2011. The owners made no repairs or improvements since it was taken off the demolition list at that time and has continued to deteriorate. There is no signed remediation agreement.
This is the same owner as one previous?
Yeah.
Kevin and Patricia Liss?
Yeah, I think the Liss family owns a couple that are on here.
Yeah.
I believe that their daughter.
They were the owners prior, for
Yeah,
the prior demolition list.
I know, we've
yeah.
heard,
Yeah,
we've
oh, it's
heard
the
their
same
mea
owners.
culpas
Yeah, it's
before
the
and
same
nothing's
owners
ever
as the
happened.
previous
Yeah.
time in 2011. So yeah, no improvements have been made. The criteria we checked were light or sanitary facilities, dilapidation, disrepair, structural defects, uncleanliness, dead and dying trees, walls, exterior not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood, and vermin infestation. It's had no water service since August of 2000.
16 years.
Yes.
2000. Well, it used to be a really cute little building too.
That's what I hear.
The carriage house.
The carriage house.
Yeah,
Yes.
on my paper route.
Yeah. I lived in that neighborhood too.
It's gone, yeah, pretty far downhill since that time.
And we've been given empty promises quite a few times from this property owner.
Next two are 856 and 860 Cherokee Street. This is another property where both homes are on the same parcel. Just in this case, both of the homes need to be, or are deemed to be dangerous structures, so we've got them both on the list. I'll just go through them both at the same time. Both of these properties do have a signed remediation agreement from the owner. The criteria that we had checked on these were light or sanitary facilities, disrepair, dead and dying trees, and the exterior not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood. The property at 856 has not had water service since September of 2011, and 860 has not had water service since April of 2011. It's about 5 years on both of them. You can see there how close they are together. It's the rear view. And both of these do have roofs that need to be completely replaced.
I drove by these. There is, yeah, I know you have a remediation agreement, but there is a point of no return, and I think these meet the point of no return. When we get to the public hearing, I'll be really surprised if there's any progress on this. It's just not, it's beyond the investment now.
There's some pretty substantial work.
Yeah,
that's been
there's-
on
You got a
this.
big tree growing between them,
For
so
sure.
probably the foundation is shot.
Yeah.
That would be my
Good
guess
guess.
as well.
This remediation agreement, did they show proof of funds and scope of work by July 6th?
They did. He brought
Okay.
in his proof of funds and scope of work. His scope of work didn't necessarily match what we had outlined in the remediation agreement, but he did bring something in and proof of funds, and so we're willing to let him move forward to come and present his case to y'all at the public hearing and see where it goes from there.
Okay.
The next one is 1107 North 10th. The criteria we checked on here were dilapidation, disrepair, dead and dying trees, and the exterior not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood. This one has not had water service since February of 2015. It's a little more recent, but it's still in pretty major state of disrepair.
No remediation agreement?
No remediation agreement on this one. And this does include a detached garage. Next one is 1158 Kenton. The criteria on this one were dilapidation, structural defects, uncleanliness, and the exterior not commensurate with the character of the neighborhood. This one we do have a signed remediation agreement on. And there's been no water service here since September of 2014.
The VA has signed a remediation agreement.
We've got it.
I thought this was owned by Secretary of Veteran Affairs.
You know, and that's a good point. We've got it signed by David Bateman. And so we'll have to double check
Yeah.
on that. So I'm not sure if he is acting as an agent, or I'll do some checking on that tomorrow and find out exactly
Yeah,
who.
your title work too will
Title work.
clarify
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So we'll find out who that was. But this one is, again, in pretty bad state of disrepair. And then our final one is 1261 High Drive. The criteria on this one are dilapidation, structural defects, and the exterior not commensurate with the surrounding neighborhood. This one's had no water service since June of 2015. And this one, it's missing some pretty large portions of its roof, which, as you can imagine, leads to some pretty significant problems inside.
And with the holes in the roof, even though it's had water service in 2015, there's no one been living in here. I mean, we need to show that and have that as to show the property's been abandoned, but they kept the water going on here. Like I said, I need to see a miracle. This one, with the holes in the roof on this, it's so disgraceful that these houses are in this condition, and we've taken this long to address them, that they've deteriorated to this state. And we don't have enough funds, of course, to go to the extent that we need it to, but these are just disgraceful.
And this doesn't look like that old of a house.
No,
Yeah, when I first saw the pictures, I thought, well, this one doesn't look that bad, and then I got to the pictures of the roof, and well, there's the problem. So it is hard on some of these to figure out exactly when there was last an occupant there. The water service is a pretty good indicator,
Yeah.
but as you said, it's doubtful that there was someone living here in June of last year.
Yeah, that hole's been there a lot longer than 1 year.
As a reminder, we use our HUD funding for these, and so there are additional hoops that are required when you use federal dollars to tear down houses. So it makes it more complicated.
Yeah. So that is the list we've got for your consideration. We would ask that we just have a motion for these to formally be placed on a list for public hearing, and we will get the ball rolling on all of these if you'd like to move forward in that manner.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Okay. You'll get into your.
I have
Robert's
one
Rules of
comment.
Order, there needs to be boards.
It's going to be approximately 60 days before these homeowners will present their case before this commission. I can't speak for the commission, but I'm hoping that the word gets out loud and clear to these owners that plan on making some moves, that within the 60 days, they show some good faith and some work has been done. I don't think I'm going to be very receptive to somebody coming in 60 days and say, oh, give me some time, I'm going to do something. They're on notice now. They know this now. They get official notices. They got 60 days, and somebody comes in 60 days. Oh yeah, I'm planning on doing this. If they haven't done it, I'm not going to be receptive to anything. I cannot speak for the rest of the commission, but I hope that if any of you are watching tonight that are owners here, I think that it would behoove you to get working on these right away if you want to keep your properties, if you want my vote.
No, and let me clarify that too by saying I need to see a miracle. Yeah, if you come and it's in this same state, I'm sorry, I give you no consideration.
Yeah, I've heard so many song
it's
and dances
just-
over the last
yeah,
8 years.
I mean,
Empty promises, and here some of the same homeowners.
These are,
coming through.
repeaters and that, I need some serious turnaround, so they need to start like tomorrow.
You guys have dealt with this a lot before, so appreciate your,
Yeah.
And that was our goal with the way we spaced the timing of the remediation agreements, in the hopes that it was abundantly clear to the owners that the improvements need to be done by the time they come to the public hearing. I think we've learned from experience that if they're not done at that point, then they're not going to be.
Yeah, there's no good faith. Yeah, because then public hearing comes September, give us 30 days. After 30 days, we extend it and say, oh my gosh, winter's on us, we can't do anything.
Right.
And we're looking at another year at
So they've had the
jump
summer
for the
and some
neighborhood
good
and
weather,
the
so.
neighboring property owners, and our property valuations going down even further.
the motion's been approved. We'll move on now. Bids, contracts, and agreements.
We have Mike McDonald, a Public Works Director. Oh, no, we have Gary. Gary over this one, sorry, Chief.
Sole source purchase, first rescue tools.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners. Here tonight before you is a proposal to purchase the brand is Hearst Rescue Tools. These are hydraulic tools, and I'll just explain the difference here in just a minute. Hearst is the manufacturer. There's several manufacturers. Hearst is actually probably one of the originals. They've been around about 40 years, and it started out hydraulic tools, and they had one that was called a spreader. You actually could put it in and it would spread things. And over the years, they made them a combi tool so that it would spread. You could also hook chains to it and pull if you needed to. And then some of them even had a cutter in there, so it was a dual action type of deal. Then they made another tool called shears or cutters. There's different sizes. And then with the new style of automobiles going from the frame to the unit body type construction, you had to start doing extrication a little bit different. So they made a thing called a ram, where you could actually push the dash and stuff up off people versus pulling it with the chains and stuff. So it's really progressed over the last 40 years. Currently, what we've had in the original was, and we just took a snapshot this morning, but the hydraulics have a gas-powered engine. That happens to be 4-cycle there, but some are 2-cycle. But that's a power unit, very heavy. It takes 2 people to pick that up. And then you see you have hoses, and we usually have different color hoses. And we have one tool there, which that tool sitting up there is a shears or cutters. And I actually brought one tonight of the battery operated. But basically, this, and then along with the spreaders and then a ram, you would hook up to that power unit, and you're limited by the distance of the length of the hose. If need be, going off the road or something of that nature, 2 people could carry the engine actually down an embankment or something. But you can always good as the length of the hose. Also, if you are, and you can operate 2 tools with this. A lot of times there has to be an operator to switch the lever back and forth, and sometimes when you're operating 2 tools, you're cutting down the power of it. Because the original ones at the tips had like 12,000 pounds PSI. If that power unit goes out, you're done dealing. Okay. What we're looking at, and actually a new style is called hydraulics, so it runs on a battery, much like your DeWalt tools or Milwaukee tools would run. Kansas City, Kansas purchased some several years ago, and they're putting them on more of their trucks. Last year, we actually received a full set of hydraulic tools through Mark with the Homeland Security grant. We were awarded that. So we've actually had and got to use, because when you get something new like that, some people are a little reluctant, but through drilling with cars and stuff, they've come to like them. I brought one, and basically what it is, this is the same tool right here. This is one of the heavy ones. This is just the cutters, but basically you see it just has a battery that goes into the back of it. It's got a button you can push to tell if it's charged or not. Sitting on
Cut
the
this
truck.
table in half.
The tolerance is so great. You can actually put a business card in there, and when you crush it, just slices it. It's amazing, really. But basically,
Wow.
just that right there, we take it up. It's as quick as that. And they all come with 2 batteries and a charger. And that's the shears. We also have the jaws and then the ram also to go with that. But and then they sit nice and neat in brackets that we have on the truck. So that's basically, and what we'd like to proposing to purchase here. It will match the other set that we already have. It'll replace one of our hydraulic units that's fairly old on one of our trucks. So it gives us more versatility. You can get it into operation a lot quicker. You don't have to start the engine and hook up the hoses and stuff. So that's what we're proposing. Like I said, Hearst has been around a long time, and you can't really get other bids from a Hearst because most manufacturers have dealers represented, and the dealer in our region is MES company that deals in our area. So we can't really go out to another dealer because they don't let them cross over. I did because I always like to check. I did check, and there is a couple other manufacturers of these hydraulics. One was called TNT, and just checking with them, their prices, it's real comparable. $8,500 to $9,000 per tool, basically. We also are getting in this set. We're getting a device. It's kind of an adapter. It plugs in where the battery plugs in, and actually has a cord off of it. So if something was to happen with the battery, and we do have spares, and they'll last almost 6 hours continuous running. We do have the possibility to run an electrical cord off a generator and run it also. So it gives us a little backup. Those were like $500. So even though this is sole sourced through EMS, we wanted to match what we currently had, because the batteries, you go to another type, then the batteries won't fit this one. It's not interchangeable with what we already have. Fort Leavenworth has recently purchased the same tool, and like I said, KCK has a whole bunch of them. So, and I did check them with prices there. It is competitive, even though it is the sole source. So that's my proposal
So this
tonight.
is included in the CIP, and there's no additional,
Yes,
okay,
that's correct.
thank you, additional cost. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the sole source purchase of the Hearst Rescue Tool in the amount of $26,609.67.
I'll second.
We'll begin voting with Commissioner Weekly.
Aye.
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 4-0.
When do you get them, Chief?
We'll get the order in as soon as we hit the PO. So,
I mean, how long, once you order, how long does it take to?
I didn't ask him.
Do
It
they
should.
have them in stock, or?
Yeah, they come from out of state, but it shouldn't take them too long.
Next time you come and sell us one of those, bring a piece of steel or something.
Come by the station anytime.
We'll look for cheap entertainment, and you can provide it here for us.
This is heavy entertainment here. Thank you.
Okay, that motion has passed, and let's move on to the next item. Sanitary sewer rehab and replacement.
This will be our Public Works Director. Thank you. Madam Mayor and Commissioners, this is a request for a change order number 3 for Lina Weaver Construction on the sanitary sewer rehabilitation replacement project. It's sometimes called the inflow and infiltration project. It's one and the same. This is a bit serendipitous to how we get here, as our crew was responding to a resident that had a sewer problem in the 700 block of Garfield. We determined that there was a problem, but it was not our sewer system causing a problem that impacted them. But they did find that one of the manholes in the area did have a substantial structural problem, and we needed to make provisions to replace it. It's about 15 feet deep. It's an old brick manhole. And this problem, it's hard to see in the pictures, but basically a 15-foot deep manhole connects a line at a higher elevation to a line at the lower elevation, and that whole system of pipes outside the manhole has collapsed and broken, which causes erosion. It pulls in the soil from the surrounding side. You get your sinkholes and that sort of thing. We don't build them that way anymore. We build them inside a 6-foot diameter manhole, so all that pipe contraption is inside a manhole where you can keep an eye on it and easily repair it. And really the only solution to these types of things is to replace the manhole, the existing manhole with the new style manhole. And that is what staff is proposing. Along the way, in the contract that Line Weaver is currently conducting, we found that there was a line that we had planned on repairing that was a flush tank and a point repair that had been not noticed during the plan preparation, and that would have been additional work that we would have had to do to repair that line. And our plans are not detailed enough to support it at this point, so we would recommend that that line be deleted from the contract and add the manhole replacement to the contract for a net increase of $7,810. The line that's deleted, we're going to make a couple modifications to the plans, and it should be on next year's project. We'll get back to it. But this allows us some funding to replace this manhole that we found.
Okay. Is there any other questions regarding this? Is there a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the change order number 3 to the contract 2016-24, the 2015 sanitary sewer rehab replacement project by Leavenworth Construction, not to exceed $7,810.
Second.
Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 That motion is passed. Next item, change order number 1 to the sidewalk replacement project contract.
Thank you, sir. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, this is the 2016 sidewalk project under construction at this time. Cause Construction is doing the work, and the change order items all relate to items that were identified on 20th Street as they've been working out there. The ADA ramps that were believed to be in compliance as they went, as they're building new sidewalk up to them, we determined that they're actually not in compliance, and it would seem redundant to build new sidewalk to ramps that we would have expected to replace. So we're proposing to replace 4 ADA ramps as part of the project that were not originally included. There was some erosion under existing sidewalks from rains that we've seen in the last 2 years, and it's proposed that that would be repaired by installing flowable fill under the eroded areas under the sidewalks. And there's a handrail on a portion of the sidewalk between north of 19th Terrace. We're replacing a substantial amount of sidewalk there, but there was no allowance in the contract to remove and replace the handrail. And it's a fairly lengthy, substantial handrail that needs to be removed and reset. And with those changes, we would recommend that the City Commission approve this change order for this extra work.
Okay.
There's a handrail on 20th Street? I don't recall
Yes,
that.
it's tucked up close to a wooden
You
fence.
say 19th Street Terrace, right there.
North
Yeah.
of 19th Street Terrace.
Okay.
It was
Is that near Kensington? No, that's
No,
farther
that's
up.
right where you cut in on the 19th Street Terrace, cut in. I didn't realize it was a handrail. I thought that was built up there to support that fence.
Yeah, the handrail was an add-on to the original project because it was a fairly dramatic drop-off over there, and ultimately the homeowners in that area, I think the city ended up actually constructing their wooden fences for
Right,
them.
for a sound barrier. Yeah.
Right, at the time of the original project back in the mid to late 90s.
Yeah.
So that's, originally the handrail was part of the project, and then the fences and the vines obscured. And it was missed.
Okay.
Any other discussion or questions? If not, we have a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the change order contract 2016-33, the 2016 sidewalk replacement project by Julius Cause Construction.
Is there a second?
In the amount of, I second it, in the amount of
Is it
$15,160.
$15,160? Yeah, I'm sorry, my pause was I'm looking for the figure there.
Okay.
Yeah, not to exceed $15,160.
Second.
Okay, begin voting with Commissioner Weekly.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The motion has passed 4-0. First consideration ordinances. Number 9, first consideration ordinance on development regulations regarding signs.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I'll take the lead on this, and I'll probably defer to our City Attorney Tom Dawson and our City Planner Julie Hurley. City Code currently prohibits the placement of signs, non-governmental signs, in the right-of-way. That's pretty common for all cities everywhere. In this last legislative session, however, there's now a Kansas statute that makes an exception to that, allowing political signs in the right-of-way 45 days before an election. So if you have a primary and then you have an election for essentially 90 days, you can have political signs in the right-of-way, so long as they don't obstruct the view, safety reasons. Originally we were going to put that on tonight's agenda to comply with the state statute. It has come to our attention through the League of Kansas Municipalities and other cities in the area that, and again, I'll defer to Tom on this, that violates a Supreme Court case law where it says you cannot pick and choose which signs can go in a right-of-way. So what you could do is you could continue to not allow signs in the right-of-way, theoretically violating the state statute. You could only allow political signs in the right-of-way, adhering to state statute but violating federal law by saying only political, or you could allow all signs in the right-of-way for the 45 days before any election and probably comply with both laws. The danger in that is for 90 days you could not regulate the signs placed in city right-of-way. The city of Roland Park has elected to ignore the state statute, and they believe they're complying with federal law. Other cities are scrambling to try to figure out what they want to do. I think this was an unintended consequence of allowing political signs in the right-of-way, but we feel that if we do that, we then have to allow all signs in the right-of-way, or we'd be violating federal law. And
So
if I
what's
miss
your-
anything, Tom or Julie can chime in on that.
So like, for example, we are getting ready to do the Richard Allen Cultural Center event.
Yeah.
And so it would be still 45 days before the election, which has nothing to do with what we're doing. But we couldn't do that any other time except before the election. Is that what you're saying?
So
That's my
we
confusion
pull-
about
we pull
non-political
many-
signs.
We pull
Yeah.
many signs out of the right-of-way.
Yeah.
And we could not pull those out for the 45 days before election, even if those signs have nothing to do with the political election, because you can't discriminate on signs in a public right-of-way according to federal law.
Like the signs that say we buy junk houses that show
Right.
up.
As long as they're not obstructing views for 45 days before a primary, 45 days before election, you could have a right-of-way littered with whatever signs did not obstruct the view.
Okay, but that's confusing for you guys to enforce because
Yes.
you have to then do a different standard for non-election times.
Yeah.
That I have
Yes.
a problem with that. So for our sake and to be consistent, I need a consistent solution.
And I'll defer to Tom. Tom, if we were to not allow any signs in the right-of-way, do you believe we'd be in conflict with current state statute?
Well, yes, we would. I'm not sure I understood your question. There would be non-political signs allowed.
Like Nancy gave the example, like there's like two different, to me, it looks like there's two different times of enforcement. Say during a non-election time, you've got a sign in the right-of-way, and I've seen a lot of people violate it, from a realtor to, advertising an event, So it's during a non-election time, you don't have to comply with the 90-day period, as I'm understanding it.
No, you do.
You do still, okay.
So let's say on
That makes no
November
sense.
10th.
Yeah.
Let's say November 10th, after the election, because you get 2 days after the election, too.
Right.
Everything has to come out of the right-of-way.
Right.
It's the 45 days preceding and the 2 days after that anything could be in the right-of-way.
So what happens, then clarify for me, what happens during non-election times?
No signs.
No signs at all in the
No
right of
signs at
way.
all.
See, so you've got two different, standards that you're, and,
It would be difficult to enforce. And like Paul said, we do pull quite a few signs from the right-of-way. And so if we were to allow those signs in the right-of-way, any signs during the 45 days prior, then we couldn't pull signs. We couldn't pull the deck staining signs, the roof repair signs,
Right.
the dating website signs. We would just have to leave all the signs in the right-of-way.
And from the citizen's perspective then, okay, the nightmare that you're explaining to me as a citizen, well, since we're in a non-election year, you can't have it. But in an election year, you got a 90-day window here that you can put any sign in your right of way. God love the state, but they make our life too complicated. It's an unintended consequence, and it's not, to me, it's an enforcement nightmare, and I really don't want to subject our citizens to that. So is there an option that we could hold off on taking any action until maybe the court case is weighed in on this, like some cities are doing, so there's a
exemption.
clearer path?
Like
I
some
don't
sort of
think there's
exemption.
any pending court cases regarding this. The
It's too new.
Right. The federal Supreme Court, they've ruled that you can't regulate based on content. So not specifically regarding election signs in the right-of-way.
Right.
I think the most recent case was regarding some signage for a church, some temporary signage that they had put up. But the Supreme Court has said you can't regulate based on signage. So we can't say you can have this type of sign, but not this type of sign. Either you can have signs or you can't have signs. It doesn't matter what they say or don't
Right.
say.
It makes more sense.
And that makes more
Yes.
sense.
Exactly.
So that's what the Supreme Court has ruled, and that's the ruling in place. And I believe that was last year, maybe even 2014, that ruling took place. The Kansas state statute, I believe, took place with the 2015 session. You might know.
I think that was it.
I believe
that's-
it's 2015. So
Sounds like overreach to me.
Yeah.
so like
Again,
Paul
telling
said,
us what to
Roland
do.
Park recently decided, like within the last few weeks, Roland Park decided to go on the side of the Supreme Court ruling and just not allow any signage in the right-of-way, which is theoretically in conflict with the state statutes. But like Paul said, all cities are right now trying to figure this out since it hasn't really come up too much since the state put it in place. And
Okay.
now that it's a big election year, it's coming up.
Give us a layman's definition of right-of-way and examples.
That's gonna be your street and approximately, I don't know how many, 8 feet or so
Depends
on
on-
either side. So roughly your space between the curb and the sidewalk. Your
Okay.
sidewalk's gonna be in the right of way.
Yeah,
So
right.
between the sidewalk and the curb, you can't place signs. In the median and grassy medians in the street, you can't place signs. That's roughly.
Well, that
roughly.
had been, I don't know, the law or the unwritten law
Forever.
for a long time that you couldn't put any political sign or any sign
And
between the
that's-
sidewalk and the street. You
That's
put it-
how our
somebody-
current regulations read, is that you can't place temporary signage in public right of way.
Well, the only person I'm making unhappy then is our state elected officials. So for my position and for the ease of staff to enforce this and for clarity for our citizens, to me, if I have to make a decision here tonight to go with this, I would prefer to stay with where we've always been, follow with the federal law and the Supreme Court ruling, because that seems to be the easiest, clear, enforceable way,
Is that-
to do this.
That's
Yeah.
option A, isn't it?
That would be option A.
Yeah.
That would be option A.
That
Yeah,
seems like the
just to point
simplest.
out, that it covers basically what you said, and then our current regulations don't very clearly address political signs, and so we wanted to add just a little bit more clarification. If you were to go with this option, so it'd say in commercial or residential, in commercial or industrial areas, signs shall not exceed 32 square feet per face, which is the current maximum that you can have.
Right.
And then in residential areas, signs shall not exceed 3 square feet per face, which would be a standard yard sign size. We just felt like that was a little bit more appropriate for residential areas. Right now, you could technically put a 32 square foot political sign in your front yard.
Yeah, and that, I remember I got some calls where someone did that in a residential area, and the neighbors called and said, oh my God, that's a huge sign. It was a billboard sign, and that, so it needs to stay with what the expectations of the public is too, yeah.
So option A is basically as is, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have a consensus then?
Are we looking for a consensus on option A, B, or C?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like option A.
I like option A.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's unanimous here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so then you'll see that back for a second consideration ordinance.
And then as we go through this election cycle, we need to address that with our incumbents and say, you really need to think this through before you pass some legislation.
And our city clerk did get a list of all registered people running for office from the county, and so pending what the commission decided, we intend to send out just an informational letter saying, just to clarify, here are our regulations regarding political signage, just so that everybody's aware, everybody knows the rules, and there's no confusion, and take it from there in terms of enforcement.
We have a consensus on option A on the signs. The next item on, is there any other discussion on this? You okay? Okay. The next item is the consent agenda. Commissioner Rainey?
Yes, don't have my reading glasses, bear with me. Madam Mayor, would like to submit the claims for June 25th, 2016 through July 8th, 2016 in the amount of $1,212,579.71. Net amount for payroll number 14, effective July 8th, 2016, in the amount of $301,233.20, and this has no fire or police pension.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Begin voting with Commissioner Preisinger.
Aye.
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 That has been passed. The motion has been approved. Other items. Are there any other items that the commissioners would like to speak about this evening? No?
I'd just make a comment about with the international officers welcoming ceremony this morning that many of us attended, and big class this year, 113 officers, I think, or 112, what is it?
112.
112, and I think they were all there. Biggest class since there's only a single class, and well attended, and I know the international officers enjoy that, and I commend City Manager Kramer for his informative briefing and probably 15 to 20 minutes of question and answer that he got from the field there, and handled them fairly well. So anyway, it was a good time. Parks and Recreation did an excellent job setting up the community center. Police Sheriff's Department did their tour and came back to an outstanding lunch. So another job well done by all the city staff.
Got to give kudos to our Mayor Pro Tem too. She had to smile 112 times there. Having stood in those shoes, I know how brutal that can be, so, but it was fun. She did well.
It was fun. I think my eyes were closed in half of the pictures, but it was fun. I'd like to thank the commissioners and city manager and staff for this my halting leadership this evening and supporting me, and I appreciate that very much. I also just have another comment. I've gotten some calls and things about our fireworks, and some, saying, well, I mean, before 4th of July, there were people who were saying we have a right to shoot fireworks, and then after 4th of July, I got several calls saying, why weren't they enforcing the illegal use of fireworks? And so I asked our city manager and Carla and the staff to look up for me, how did we come about banning fireworks in the city of Leavenworth when the other cities around us? And apparently there were some injuries, there were some problems for a few years, and everybody was shooting off fireworks. Then in 1982, there were a couple, or 81, there were a couple of petitions that were brought forward. One were brought forward by a couple of citizens, and then there was another petition that was brought forward by a fireworks vendor in opposition. And so it was agreed by the city commission and at that time Mayor Clyde Graber to put it on the November ballot. And so it was voted on in the November election of 1982. And so, you know, people said, why are you banning fireworks? We didn't. We did. The general public banned fireworks. The people did, and they voted almost over 2-1. It was like 4,300 to 2,600 in favor of the ban in the general election of 1982. So just so everybody knows that, we didn't ban the fireworks. I do think it's kind of silly to ban the sparklers, but that wasn't my choice either, and none of the commissioners made that choice. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to clarify that.
My first term on the commission, which was in 2003, there was just a big outcry again, and I think it happens like maybe every 10 years, a big thing, but when, and one commissioner who's, you know, led the charge for that to have him, when he discovered it was put on the ballot and the community did get their voice, you know, he did back off from it, but yeah, it gets a resurgent, but really, I think even if we did revisit on the ballot, I think it's a safety issue, and you know, almost people feel. I like that the Times did the survey, and I know that's not really that much of a, you know, good solid indicator of the public, but still, they still, you know, felt that safety issue, you know, that to not shoot them off in the fireworks. And as far as enforcement, there are not enough police officers on staff to just enforce. In my neighborhood alone, you could see the haze of smoke, so...
if there are people shooting them off illegally, how many people would be shooting them off if they were legal?
I tell you, so their neighbors need to turn them all in.
There were 83 warnings given out that night, according to our police chief. Just a little background information.
They must have been very busy.
And I know every 4th of July, the week before 4th of July, we hear, you know, people always have to have fireworks. It's not necessarily part of the Constitution or Declaration of Independence, but they make it into a patriotic thing. And, you know, I've been approached, would you vote to allow fireworks? My answer is no. But what I would consider, if a legitimate petition that follows the petition rules of the state of Kansas is brought forward that puts it on the ballot. That's the move. I would not sit up here and overturn a vote of the people. But if the people bring a petition, and there are certain requirements on a petition, we haven't had a legitimate petition presented to this commission for 10, 15 years that meets the requirements of the petition as stated by the state, I will not overturn a vote of the people. But the people can put it on a vote.
No,
but I don't think that...
that's why the other commissioner backed off, because it was a vote of the people.
Yeah. And the only way that I'd consider moving it forward, if a legitimate petition that met the requirements of the petition presented. And we haven't had a petition presented to us in, well, the 8 years that I've been on the commission, it was a piece of paper that was petition, but true definition of petition that it had the proper signatures. There hasn't been one presented to the commission that met the requirements.
Yeah, they would need to come into the clerk's office and
no, the clerk will not do it.
No, and get what they could at least get what the legal requirements of
the
petition.
No, the clerk will refer you to the state.
Yeah,
because we don't want to tell them that's a state requirement, and you don't want to put that on the clerk, because if they misunderstand, that's it. And
but
you refer them straight to Topeka, would you not?
Yeah,
I could refer them to the statutes.
Yeah.
But we're not going to take somebody by the hand and do it.
No, it's more involved than just going around and getting people to sign a piece of paper with a number of signatures. There's a procedure.
Yeah. So, once again, this commission has not been presented a petition in the 8+ years that I've been on, 8 years I've been on the commission. On the definition of what a petition is.
Any other comments? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Begin voting with Commissioner Weekly.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
We are adjourned.
Whoa.